about certain kinds of books. So Ms. Frank is going to be talking to you today about the books that she really loves, that she thinks are great books for your reading level. And so I am looking for, gentlemen, an audience that represents what Ute Meadows is about and how Ute Meadows treats visitors and guests, right? Okay? So if you would point your attention to Miss Frank, she will be giving you your talk today. All right?
Thank you.
Hey guys, I just wanted to share, these are some of the books I read when I was about your age, and I just loved them. These are the books that I remember from, we won't tell you how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago, and I still remember them because they were just so wonderful, so I had to share them with you. So I'll just jump right in. First book I want to share with you, it's called Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins. And Gregor is one of my favorite people, but he hasn't really had a very easy life. His dad disappeared 2.5 years ago, and no one knows where he went. So his mom had to go back and work full-time, and Gregor's grandma, she's starting to lose her memory. So Gregor is in charge of his 2-year-old sister, Boots, for the whole summer. Not an ideal summer, right? Well, his life gets a lot more complicated when, while he's doing laundry, he falls through a grate in the floor. And instead of just, hitting his chin, like you'd expect, he falls and falls and falls until he ends up in Underland. Kind of like that, yeah. It's actually a place underground where some people, hundreds of years ago, they decided they wanted to live underground because they thought it'd be safer than living on top of the ground. You'd think, right? But they like it down there. But they're not really the only things down there, as Gregor finds out. Actually, the first people he meets in Underland aren't people at all, but cockroaches. Big ones.
Wow.
Not just like big, like the size of my hand sort of cockroaches. Big, like bigger than you are big.
Wow.
Huge cockroaches. And the cockroaches take him to meet the humans who live in Underland. But the humans have some really close friends, their closest allies, bats. And like the cockroaches, these aren't just little bats, huge bats.
Like the cockroaches?
Bigger wingspan than my arms.
Oh, wow.
The Underlanders can actually ride on the bats. And that's what they're doing when Gregor meets them.
Oh, that's cool. How cool.
They're really excited to meet Gregor, but they don't really want him to go home, and they're kind of mean. And, well, Gregor doesn't want his mom to worry anymore because his dad's already missing. So that night, he grabs Boots and he runs. And that's when he meets the third group in Underland, rats.
Oh.
Rats bigger than people.
No.
Now the cockroaches, okay, that's a little freaky, cockroaches bigger than you. Bats, huge bats, that's a little intimidating. But the rats,
Scary.
the rats are just evil. The rats actually want to eat Gregor and Boots. They're about to when the Underland humans and their bats swoop down and start attacking them. So Gregor is saved. And when he gets back to the palace, he finds out why they bothered to chase after him. They think they know where his dad is. And they hand him a keychain that Gregor made his dad to prove it. They think that Gregor's dad is a prisoner of the rats. They also think that Gregor is a prophesized warrior that's going to come and fight the rats. And then, after that, the humans will be safer because the rats will be defeated. Now, Gregor, he thinks this is a little bit silly. He's not really a warrior material. He's seen the movies, he knows what warriors are like, but he really wants his dad back. So Gregor decides, hey, let's go along with this. Maybe I can see my dad again. So is Gregor actually the warrior that the Underlanders think he is?
I never know.
But does he see his dad again and bring his family home safely?
Maybe?
Find out when you read Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins.
That was by Suzanne.
Yeah.
She did the Hunger
She
Games.
did. She did the Hunger Games. And these books, the Overlander books, are just as wonderful as the Hunger Games.
She was really good at Hunger Games.
Yeah. Well, the Overlander books are just as good, so you should definitely read those. Second book I want to share with you is Boston Jane, An Adventure by Jennifer L. Holm. Jane Peck, she's the main character in this book. Her life is kind of not going right. Have you ever had one of those days where it's not going well? Everything that can go wrong really has.
Yeah.
Well,
Yesterday when I stayed up.
yeah, so you stay up too late and can't get up the next morning. Your food's not quite right. You don't bring your jacket and it's really cold. Well, Jane's life has been going like that for about the past year, actually. Papa always said, you make your own luck. But after being seasick for 5 months, 2 weeks, and 6 days, I felt certain luck had nothing to do with anything aboard the Lady Luck, which was a poorly named vessel if there ever was one. I had just spent the morning of my 16th birthday puking into a bucket. And I had little hope that my day was going to improve. And I had no doubt at all that I was the unluckiest young lady in the world. She didn't used to be unlucky. She went to Miss Hepplewhite's Young Ladies Academy, and she learned how to travel lightly and dress plainly, to have a cheerful disposition no matter what. And she took first place in cross-stitch. She thought she was ready for the world, so she set out to meet her fiancé, William, who was in Washington Territory, living on the land there. But what she should have been learning at the academy was how to bathe in seawater, how to get rid of fleas and avoid rats, and how to avoid nausea on a 6-month-long sea voyage. She hopes her luck will improve once she finally makes it to Washington Territory, but it doesn't, because William's not actually there to meet her. So Jane has to live in Washington Territory, where she doesn't know anyone, and her fiancé is gone, and hope that he comes back. Is he going to come back? And how will James manage with her finishing school academy training? She doesn't really know how to live on the frontier. So how do you think she'll cope with that? You can find out if you read Boston Jane, An Adventure by Jennifer L. Holm. And that's actually first in a trilogy. So there's lots of adventures that she goes on. All right. Third book. It's from the Horrible Histories series. It's called The Vicious Vikings by Deary. How many of you know about the Vikings? Yeah? Okay, real quick. What do you know? What do you know about the Vikings?
They were like made a long time ago.
Okay.
Sometimes they sail around Ireland.
Okay, good.
They love to raid stuff and they're pretty stupid.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah? Okay. What about outhouses? Who knows what those are?
Oh.
Yeah, kind of gross, right?
Those are
Hole in the ground and smelly. Well, you know, when the Vikings were around, that's the only toilets they had. They didn't have flush toilets. I'm sure you know that. You're smart kids. Well, one king actually was assassinated when he went to the bathroom. One of the Viking kings. Now, yeah, okay, people get killed. And on the toilet, that's kind of silly. But, okay, you've all been in a porta potty, or you know what an outhouse is, right?
Yeah.
Small space, right?
Yeah.
So where do you hide if you're going to kill the king? Where would you hide?
Oh.
In the potty, exactly. Real man did that. Killed his dad by hiding in the toilet and killed his dad when his dad went to the bathroom.
Ew. That's gross.
It is.
How did they stab him or do whatever?
You get a really long sword.
with a knife.
Ew, gross.
Okay, what if you do something, someone says you've done something, you broke the rules, you did something you shouldn't have. How do you prove you didn't do it?
By showing who the person did it and
Okay, right.
while they're doing it, then
Right, catch them in the act, do an investigation, stuff like that.
stare into their eyes too.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, if you're a Viking, the way you proved you were innocent of whatever you were accused of, there were a couple ways you could do this.
If your lines are crying.
There There you go, that's one way. The Vikings didn't really do it quite that way. They had one option where you could stick your hand into boiling water, grab a stone from the bottom of the pot that's holding the boiling water and pull it out, and then they'd bandage up your hands. And then in 3 days, they'd check and see, were you still wounded or were you healed? If you were healed, clearly you were innocent. If you were still wounded, clearly you were guilty and they would punish you. I know, you think the scalding water would be punishment enough, but they usually punished you worse. But maybe you think, okay, I'm not sticking my hand in boiling water, that's just dumb. Well, they had another way you could prove it. You could be tied up hand and foot and thrown in a lake, an ice-cold lake. And their idea was, if you were guilty, you would float on top of the water. Just like oil floats on top of the water. They said, oh, water rejects impurities. If you're guilty, clearly you're not pure of heart, so you'd float on top of the water. So if you floated on top of the water, they'd pull you out and punish you. Okay, what if you're innocent? Then you would sink. And hopefully they would pull you out before you drowned, which didn't always work. Right. I know, not a lot of good choices, right?
I would do boiling water. Yeah, that's
Yes, this book is nonfiction, it's all true, and it's full of horrible, gross things that happened. I don't know if your teachers or parents would tell you about all these gross things. You know, when grown-ups get a little older, they get a little squeamish. They don't like to talk about things like that sometimes. This book does, though. And you can learn what else did the Vikings do that was horrible? Or not so horrible? What did they do for stories? What was it like if you were married and you wanted a divorce? Could you actually do that if you were a Viking?
Yeah.
What sort of songs did they like? And they also had a quiz at the end to see if you would have made a good Viking. If you would have actually done well in this horrible, vicious period.
So, like, if you were to actually put your hand in boiling water, grab a stone or not, and you had to freeze, like, for days, if you still had it, that would die off of it.
It would.
Seems like you would always get caught, even if you weren't.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? All right, fourth book is Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz. It is good. I'm Alex Ryder, and my uncle just died.
Oh, that's from the Alex Ryder series?
It's from the Alex Ryder series, yes. Now, maybe when your uncle dies, that's not fun, but it's a bit worse for me, because my mum and dad, they died when I was just a little boy. So my uncle raised me. They told me, first, when they told me my uncle died, they said he died in a car crash, and that he went through the windscreen because he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. But that didn't sound right because my uncle was very careful about wearing his seatbelt. He never would have gone flying through the windscreen. So I decided that I should look for the car. And I found it. And you know what was in the car? The windshield was fine. It was full of bullet holes. Someone murdered my uncle. Well, my uncle, it turns out, had a secret life. He'd always told me he was an insurance agent, but he wasn't. He was part of MI6, which is the British version of the CIA. My uncle was a spy, and he was murdered while he was completing a mission. My uncle's boss, he thinks I can help finish this last mission for my uncle. I don't know that I really want to do that.
Yes.
I mean, I'm 14. I have some training in martial arts. I like computers. But that doesn't really qualify me to take out grown-ups who've had lots of training and experience doing spying. But my uncle's boss was very firm. Actually, he blackmailed me into helping out. I have to do it or I'll lose my home. Because I'm 14, I'm too young to live by myself otherwise, if I don't do this. But maybe this mission won't be so bad. It's just looking into some new computers that are coming out, so maybe I'll just spend 3 weeks of my life playing video games. That doesn't sound so bad. But then again, these people did kill my uncle. And if they're doing something with computers, well, it could get nasty. Actually, it could get very nasty. Nastier than any of us had thought when we started. That's Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz. Yes, I love it. All right, and then last but certainly not least is Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine.
Why is this one sticker on each one?
Hello, I'm Lucinda, the fairy, and I am the most wonderful fairy godmother in the whole kingdom. I am beautiful, I am smart, and I give the best gifts. That's what fairy godmothers do, don't you know? They give gifts. So I go to birthdays and weddings, and I bestow gifts. Now maybe you don't think that I give the best gifts, but let me tell you about one gift I gave. There was this young girl, her name was Ella, baby, and she was sobbing, crying, screaming. She wouldn't stop. It was terrible. It was her birthday, and she was having no fun at all. And no one around her was happy either, because, as you all know, screaming babies, it's not fun to be around them. They're very loud and very unhappy, and they make you unhappy too. And that's when I knew what gift I would give her. I gave her the gift of obedience. So the next time her mother asked her very nicely to stop crying, she did. Well, Ella's nanny wasn't thrilled with my gift. She thought I'd done something wrong. She said who would want to do whatever anyone told them for the rest of their life? But that's just silly. Just think of it. Whenever your parents told you, eat your vegetables, do your homework, go to bed, don't stay up anymore, take your coat, it will be cold. You just have to do it. You wouldn't have to argue or fight about it, you just go do it. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, Ella must get along really well with everyone she meets because she has to do whatever anyone orders her to do. Whatever it would be. Well, although I did hear that Ella ran away from school, but that's just ridiculous. How could someone whose gift is obedience run away from school? And even if she did, that'd be a very silly thing to do. The kingdom's not that safe on your own, you know. There are ogres out there, and they like to eat people. And if you have the gift of obedience and they told you you should hop in a cooking pot, well, that would end pretty badly, don't you think? But I'm sure that Ella is perfectly happy with her gifts because I'm Lucinda the Fairy and I have never given a bad gift in my life. Not once. I'm sure that the gift of obedience doesn't actually end up being like a curse. I'm sure that Ella loves her life and is perfectly happy to do whatever anyone tells her. And maybe if you don't believe Lucinda, you should read Ella's side of the story. In Ella Enchanted, Gail Carson Levine.
That sounds kind of like this one movie where...
They did make a movie that was called it, but if you've read the book and watched the movie, they don't really match at all. Really, about the only thing that's the same is there's a girl named Ella and she has to obey, and they're both called Ella Enchanted. So, you should definitely read the book version because it's much better. And those are the books that I think you should all go check out and read. And we have all of them here. Mrs. Soderberg has them all here. They're also at the public library if you want to check them out there.